when you guys are ready.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. 2:00 already. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're going to give it another minute or two while people join. Kelly, how's your day going?
It's going so lovely. We're finally getting some sunny days here in SoCal. No more rain, hopefully. So feels like spring has sprung, and I'm loving the time change. Beautiful.
Yeah, time change is double-edged sword because like when I wake up early over here in New York, it's like dark. I'm like, not
Which do you
cool.
think is worse, the dark mornings or an early dark evening?
Ugh, I don't know. I mean, I want sunny all the time. But yeah, I guess the dark evening, like you don't want that. But it's definitely not the greatest to wake up and it's like pitch black out. So,
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
win. You can't win.
You kind of can't win, huh? So true. Well, excited for spring. Is spring upon you in New York?
Yeah, we're getting there. I think today's going to get up to maybe like 55, 60-ish. So
Okay.
we're inching along, but it depends. Every day in New York, it's like totally different. Like the weather's kind of gone a
Yeah.
little bonkers
It
lately.
could
So
still snow, huh? Yeah,
yeah, you never know.
you're not out of the woods.
Yeah,
Don't pack
exactly.
away your North Face quite yet.
No, North Face. Is that like the one winter brand that you know?
Oh man, that's so true. I'm unfamiliar, but I could probably name you 100 brands of, sandals and t-shirts out here.
In New York, I feel like, I mean, this is a crazy thing to say. I feel like I have a jacket for every 5 degrees because New York, it's like you get everything here. So it's bizarre.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, thank you everybody for being here while we chit chat away. I'm so excited to be on Fishbowl with Kelly because we have known each other for a while now. And Kelly is just, my camaraderie in being innovative and direct and helpful to job seekers. And that's what we want to be. We just want to be helpful. So we're going to do that. And we're going to give you all the down low of what is going on in the world of this crazy job search market that we're in today. So, yeah, I'm going to dive in. So, hello, Fishbowl, and thank you for joining. I am Rachel Serwetz. I'm the founder and CEO and career coach at Woken. I think this is our 21st time speaking on Fishbowl, but I think I've started to lose count, to be honest, because that's a lot. And so for future talks, please do follow our profiles to be notified of future conversations. We are already planning Q2 with Fishbowl and just making sure to give you really good talks with different topics that are really, really helpful to you. And that is our goal. So we are talking today in a session that is a part of a series called Recruiting Unfiltered. And we just pull back the curtain on the job application, hiring processes, interview processes, to just help you strategically navigate your search. So today we're going to dive in a little bit more to like the interviewing type of things, right? And landing the role. There have been several other chats where we've done a little more of like the breaking in and the networking. And I know that's so important. So please access our recordings for that. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about the interview process itself. But of course, you can ask us anything. So I am going to interview Kelly for about 40 minutes. And then you can ask any question you want in the end, and you can raise your hand to join the stage. There's a button in the bottom right corner, or you can DM me your question, and we will keep your name anonymous. So I'll just super quickly introduce myself and then have Kelly do the same. So yeah, my background, I started out at Goldman Sachs and then I went to Bridgewater Associates. I was in operations and then recruiting and performance management. I was informally coaching for many years on the side of my job, and then I got coaching training through NYU and certified through the International Coach Federation. And then I started coaching through a variety of different organizations in addition to building my own company for about 6.5 years now. Pretty crazy. And I also did a tech MBA at NYU Stern. So I have seen just such a wide array and a wide, a variety of different types of people, different types of goals, challenges, you name it. Pretty much anything you could think of in the career realm. So that's the quick down low on me. So Kelly, please tell us who you are, and then we'll dive into the interview.
Cool. Thanks, Rach. Okay, well, I'm Kelly. I'm an agency recruiter. I live in Southern California right now, but I do work remotely at the moment. And I've also done some internal recruiting in the past. My current focus is on SaaS and go to market roles, so mainly working with early stage tech startups. I've been in people operations for almost 9 years now, but specifically focused on recruiting and building teams for closer to 5. I really love recruiting, love helping people get jobs. Also, really just value meeting people in what is often a vulnerable moment in their lives. And, just hearing their story and being able to maybe be sort of a soft landing in someone's job search, hopefully becoming a resource, of course. And so I think in that spirit, it sort of prompted me to start a podcast last year about the workplace called We Just Work Here. And I also began posting quite a bit more content around the job search on LinkedIn just because I felt like I was answering a lot of the same questions over and over. So it's been a fun journey. I love talking about this stuff and digging into the myths floating around out there around the job search and interviewing. And so thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, and you guys should definitely follow Kelly on LinkedIn, and shameless plug, obviously connect with me as well. But Kelly does do a great job, and in the sense of like just the patterns, the trends, the topics, the concerns, the challenges, and she does post about those things. So I know she'll be open to hearing what else is on your mind and what else she can share about in the future. So I'm going to just dive right in. We are going to start at the top of the funnel. So if you hear somebody say, I'm not landing any first round interviews, what comes to your mind? And also, like, what is helping people get noticed to land those first round screenings?
Yeah. Great question. I honestly want to hear that. I think you and everyone else, like it's like seriously, nobody is getting the 5, 6, 10 first round interviews that we used to see in the past. It can be really slim pickings out there right now. And so I think my first thought to that question is, how long have you been at it? Have you been at this for months? If it has been months, how creative have you gotten? Because I think when you're just beginning, it's sort of about tempering your expectations, right? Because we're not seeing people snagging tons of first rounds, you have to be extra patient and kind of know that this job search may take a bit longer than you may have experienced in years past. Certainly, since you were previously job searching, I'd expect. And then back to the creativity piece, have you been sort of following the same process of applying online to jobs that have been open for weeks and then just sort of shutting your laptop and going about your day? Because realistically, that's no longer an option. I think you have to be quick right now. You have to be creative. You have to be patient. And then at some point, it just feels like you have to be a bit lucky too. And I think by creative, you have to find like really unique ways to get in touch with hiring managers right now. So that's really the end goal, is making those connections with people who are making decisions to get yourself noticed. Like a friend of mine told me a couple years ago, I thought this was so interesting. He walked into an ad agency that he saw had a job opening. It was in New York. He walked in with a pizza delivery for the hiring manager. The receptionist let him in, thinking it was a lunch order. Um, and then when he got to the guy's office, he handed in the pizza and his resume and he got the job.
Oh my
So
God. Love
like
that.
nowadays we're not in person, right? But you have to find your pizza moment. Like you have to figure out how to do that and how to creatively get in front of people in a way that's going to get you noticed. Like people will really latch onto that and be open-minded to you. I think kind of this is like another fundamental change in ideology. Like you right now, a lot of people, and I've done it myself, have been in like the spray and pray method
Mm.
of job searching. And we have to change that mindset, I think, in order to get a solid next role, because you really have to go after the companies and roles you actually want and the places you think you could really be a fit. So that involves researching and finding companies who are your ideal and creating job alerts on LinkedIn, and connecting with their talent team. And then there's like a whole separate strategy around creating content yourself that might interest them, or engaging with their company content. Like that will get you noticed. If you stay consistent, you post comments to whatever they're posting or engage with them, they will start to notice you and remember your name. Like, I promise you it can happen.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I always say, like, just think of the job search instead of just like, I'm searching, like, have this mindset of, like, what would you do if you were just advancing your career? You would build your brand, you would
Mm.
upskill, you'd have thought leadership, you'd build networks, you'd join events, you'd join communities, you'd join groups, you would just like do all these different activities. So just like be very careful if you're only doing those online apps. And when you have the one role that you really want to stand out
Hmm.
about, then, have your pizza moment. You're not going to go out of your way for every single role, but
Yes.
I think less is more. Like, can you do the special things for the roles that you're like, this role is for me? Like, go make that known. And I like what you're
Hmm.
saying of like how they're going to get to know your name. I had a coach in the past who used to say, like, build a campaign for yourself. Like, if one person sees you in the comments and one person, you have a networking call with, and all of a sudden everybody's saying, who's Kelly Schmidt? It's like, oh my God, we
Hmm.
got to talk to this girl.
Yep.
So building the campaign, getting creative, I love that. Yeah, so much good in what you just mentioned, and the perspective helps because we have to understand how it works and what's
Hmm.
going on today, so that we can switch up our tactics. Because it can be frustrating when you're just doing the online apps if you're not
Right.
seeing the traction back. So just know it's not just you, but what can you do is just switch things up a bit and get creative and try some new and different things, and getting yourself in front of people. And there's so many things you can think of that aren't doing the online apps, and what else can you do
Yeah.
outside of that.
And you're planting seeds, right? You're start today, even if you're job searching today, but even if you're not job searching today, start planting seeds that, are going to really blossom in the future by connecting with those companies that interest you. Keep a running list of companies that catch your eye, connect with recruiters who you think post great content or kind of in your field or space. Plant those seeds of connection, and then down the line, it's going to pay off hugely.
Yes, I love it. um yes, incredible. And so let's talk about that first round screening call, right? So imagine we actually land this wonderful call.
Hmm. Yes.
What makes for, like, flying colors? You're just you hang up, and you're like, okay, this person's moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you want to see in that first call?
Yeah, honestly, you can tell instantly someone who prepared and someone who just kind of scanned the website for 2 seconds before getting on the call. So, and it's honestly not that much effort. Like, I think sometimes people think like, oh, that takes so much to prepare for these calls. I think especially with recruiters, but even some of those early rounds with maybe internal recruiters, it's not difficult to prepare. It really just takes like maybe the 10 minutes before your first round with them. I understand people are tired, they have limited bandwidth and energy, but you can learn a lot about a company in just 10 or 15 minutes of researching them, understanding the space they're in, and starting to kind of begin to draw parallels between your background and what they're doing. So I think the first thing I can tell is like somebody who's taken that 10 minutes of time to just glance at who the founding team is, understand the product, etc. You can also tell in the energy and the excitement level. That's going to make for a really strong first round. You don't have to fake it, but I can almost guarantee you that in like, however, if you sound kind of so about the role, you're not moving forward.
Mm,
Like so many candidates I talk to, despite having the company website sent ahead of time, tell me like, "Oh, I didn't have a chance to look at it." Like that's a big red flag, obviously. And when they sound just sort of like, it seems interesting. Tell me a little bit more." It's psychological to the interviewer. They will spot it and think to themselves like, "Oh, something was off about that person," and what was off is that you didn't care.
mm,
And sometimes that happens. I've found sometimes for shy people, that can be a little bit of a hurdle. And I know that I've had people who are maybe on the quieter side or more introverted side say like, well, I don't want to get a bad rap. I don't want to come off like I don't care, but this is my personality. And I guess to that, I think I would say really try to think about how you can present yourself with confidence, because it
Mm.
doesn't have to be like this crazy, overwhelming amount of excitement, but it does have to show. Um, it is about conveying that you can handle your business and that you're interested in theirs.
Mm.
So that doesn't have to be, over the top, like I'm saying, but it does have to be sort of a sense that you're conveying to the recruiter that, there was some level of preparation, there is knowledge on your part of what you're even interviewing for, and there's some excitement on your end to pursue that next step. That, and I think also
Yes.
just having good, thoughtful questions prepared, that is so
Mm-hmm.
essential.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that deeper, but that was so much good in what you were saying. And I just think, when we get into interviews, sometimes we show up and just tell the person what we think they want to hear, but like
Mhm.
really figure out, like, if you're not in a conversation where you're naturally energized by the nature of the work of what you're talking about, then don't be interviewing for those roles. Like, figure
Yes.
out what roles you're going to have the natural energy for. Like, I honestly was on an interview myself because sometimes I like to stay in the game, and I like to, make sure I know what job search
Yeah.
is as a career coach. And I was like, I love this. I love, I was being myself,
Mm.
like if you actually are energized, tell them what energizes you. So your
Hmm.
tone, you can show, you can tell, there's different ways to do it. But absolutely, if you're shyer, just practice, right? And if you truly are energized, it will shine. And if you're not, figure out, like, are we in the right conversations here?
Hmm.
And especially to your preparation point, I always say you could do a lot of good in 20 minutes, with
Yeah.
preparation, but your priorities need to shift. If you're like, I don't have time, like, I understand you're not going to put a ton of time into every single interview because you're like, what if this is all a waste in the end? And you do want to protect your time. But I'd rather you take 20 minutes to prepare than spend 20 more minutes on some other online application. Like, the minute you have an interview, that is your priority. Like,
Hmm.
things shift. So be a little nimble to rise to that occasion. If you're, don't be job searching if you're not going to show up to those interviews fully, or don't apply to that job if you don't want to show up to that interview well, right? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always impressed when candidates show up to an interview round and say, "This is what I learned. Can you fill in any gaps for me or,
Yes.
show me a different side of that?" But when they only show up to the conversation with, "Can you tell me about the role?" That to me is like, we're not both showing, because I'm putting effort in, right? Like, I've researched the candidate, I am reaching out to you with interest, I am trying to get to know you. And it really is building a relationship with the entire interview process. Every person in it, you are trying to build a rapport with, right? So we're all putting some effort in, and candidates need to show up with that as well. Now, I understand people go through a lot. It is so tiring. They are going through rounds and rounds and putting in effort for presentations and homework and all the rest of it. So I do understand, and I talk to a lot of candidates who feel a sense of burnout or maybe some disillusionment with the process, because employers are not all doing this well, and they are not honoring people's time, and they are not, um, I guess, showing up as equal partners in this process. And they put a lot of burden on candidates. So that's a whole other story. I think for right now, all we can touch on is what candidates can control, right? We
Yes.
can't control what employers are going to do. They're
Right.
going to behave how they are. And so I think, again, this is a lesson in what can we do to kind of put the factors in play in our kind of like in our control, and what can we do to move the process forward ourselves, rather than focusing so much on the disparity between how employers are unfair and asking too much, et cetera.
Yes. And I mean, it is real on a macro level that, like, the strategies and tactics, may and should adapt and innovate on their part.
Hmm.
But, it can be very frustrating. So when you are in that mindset of only thinking about what these employers are doing that makes no sense, try to take that breath and, definitely revisit, what can I control in this journey, and
Yeah.
just know that it is imperfect and it is hard and it is messy and it may not make sense, but
Right.
just keep revisiting your control. And so, when candidates are asking questions during the interview process, right? And I see a question, so hold that question. We're going to keep doing interviews for like maybe 15, 20 more minutes, but I will get to you. So raise your hand again in a little bit, Elizabeth. But yeah, when a candidate's asking questions, I always find this as a conundrum, because you kind of alluded to it. Like, when you ask a question, I feel like you're implying that you don't know the answer,
Mm,
but you may have done some homework. So I kind of feel like a person could kind of do what you said, which is, here's what I think this answer is, but can you help me clarify? Like, here's what I think the responsibilities are, or here's what I think makes a successful hire, or here's what I think success looks like, or whatever those questions are. Like, it's weird. It implies you don't know. But so I like to sort of present a little with that question and then ask for them to fill in the gaps. Like, is that kind of what you're looking for with thoughtful questions from the candidate?
Yeah, yeah, and that's an excellent way of putting it. I think again, this is like a psychology thing. Like people like to like they like that sort of dynamic. Like, is that what you meant? Or asking sort of like a clarifying question. So it allows them the chance to jump in and sort of educate you, which everyone kind of subconsciously loves, to feel like they're the expert and they get to jump in and share. But I also think it shows like you get a sense of care and intention on the part of the candidate. So I think that asking good questions comes in a few forms. I think the first is, asking about the product and the company and the need they're trying to fill. And um, you can kind of think about this like you're on a recon mission. Like this is info that's going to tell you so much about them and how they answer it. Like for better or for worse, like you can take that info and use it to show, either that you are the solution that they're looking for down the line. Or you can be like, oh, geez, seeing some red flags here and how they're answering it, not for me. So I think that's really important, just asking those kind of deep dive questions early on in the process around the company, the product, the mission, et cetera. And then I think the second form of a good question is the type where you actually ask questions to interview them to see if they are a good fit for you. Because there are needs you have, to make sure that you as a candidate are able to jump in and get those questions, um, asked like not so much how much does it pay on the first call, and in fact, probably don't do that, but more like what is the long term vision for this team, and how does the team fit into the larger organization? What are some of the qualities you feel this person needs to be successful on this team? What's the pathway for feedback? How do you outline a growth path? Just a few questions like that really show curiosity. It shows interest in what they're doing, and it helps you figure out if this company is like a toxic mess or if you can actually grow and thrive there.
Yeah.
So I feel like at all times you want to be showing how you are the person who is going to fulfill all of their hopes and dreams for this role.
Yeah.
So, primarily leading with questions that help you answer that question for them. That's going to be a big part of it. But, just as important is this the right opportunity for you? And the interview is definitely, it goes both ways.
Yeah. I always say, like, think of questions you would ask if it was day one on the job. Like, what would you
Yep.
genuinely need to know to succeed in this job?
Yes.
And dig into the work, because to your point, then you're going to have better responses and stories and things you can say about how you would go sort of resolve that. So get really deep with what they're facing, pain points, strategies, roadmaps, opportunities, where are they at? And then to your point, obviously get to know if it's the right fit for you. And the way I like to do that is get stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like what's the culture there. It's like, think of what's important to you in a culture and ask them about, tell me about a time this happened, and then
Mm-hmm.
you'll determine what the culture is based on them
Yeah.
telling you a story and you're telling them a story. Why not get the reverse? So,
Yeah.
be really creative with your questions and definitely take time. I think people struggle a lot and they just ask the questions that we've all heard of and we think those are just like it, but don't like force it. Don't check the box. Like genuinely think of questions that make sense to you, that feel strategic,
Right.
and helpful to you. And also, with the, here's what I think, what do you think? That's just good communication. Like, you're basically showing that you know how to communicate. You're showing that you're not assuming. You're showing, here's how I understand it, but I recognize you may have a different view, or maybe I misunderstood it. Can you help me clarify? Like, that's just good communication. So,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I always say, like, pretend you're just like in a work meeting with like a pretty important,
Mm-hmm.
say you're with a VP or say you're with a strategic client. Like, how would you show up as your best communicator? You'd
Mm-hmm.
ask clarifying questions, you'd do all these things, just do that. Like, pretend it's just like a really important work meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
want to show your style, right? Like, even in how you handle the conversation.
Right, totally. And think about the red flags you've already experienced, right? You've been through some things, you know some things now. So think about the things that have, been really difficult to deal with in the past, and find creative ways to ask questions around that, because those are going to be really important. Like if you run into those things again in the next role, that's going to be, devastating. It's going to be difficult for you to continue forward. So think of the things that have really caused you to question or potentially leave a role in the past and find, maybe not the most abrasive, direct way of asking it, but find creative ways to inquire around those topics in the workplace you're interviewing for. And I think that can bring a lot of peace of mind as well.
Totally. I mean, there's also like chatting with somebody outside of your interview process if you really
Totally.
need an honest take on things. So there's like a time and a place for certain questions, but like
Hmm.
definitely eventually you're always going to be comprehensive in what you need to know, but you
Hmm.
can be strategic about like who, when, what you ask, how you ask it, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about, the show versus tell, right? We know that stories are so important, but like how do you show up like you're just literally already, a marketing manager? Like how do you show up that
Yeah.
you're the right person? How do you just get that across, throughout the conversation?
Yeah. Again, I just think every single moment you're in the interview process is an opportunity to show them that you are their answer. So it's a lot better, to your point, to show that you are trustworthy and can meet deadlines by being on time to the interview. It's better to show you're a team player by treating everyone from the TA coordinator who schedules you for the rounds all the way to the CEO that you're kind and gracious. It's better to show that you can pay attention to detail by joining the right Zoom link or parking in the right lot and getting there early. Like show them rather than telling them these things is going to go so much further. People really notice incongruent behavior with what they hear in the interview.
Mhm.
And so you will not move forward if your words and actions don't match. Actually saw this recently with a candidate who said they were going to do all of this follow up with a potential employer. And then, they in fact did not follow up with the employer to update them or show them their progress on a presentation. So like if you're going for a sales job, you have to close the hiring manager. If you're going for the marketing role, you have to market yourself. And I think you have to be active in showing that you are the answer and the solution, but also that you have the qualities that you might be sitting in front of an interviewer and saying that you have, right? Of course, our resumes are, littered with words like we're attention to detail and organized and analytical, but the interview process is a great opportunity to give it real life examples to that team and give them a lot of confidence that you're it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I always say, like, even a follow-up email can be such a great example of like, you are a clear communicator. You gave really good
Yeah.
details. Like, if you can write a great email, like, that's helpful. Like, you're saving
Right.
somebody time and energy. Maybe you're adding value. Maybe you're reiterating fit and interest. Maybe you send them a blog you wrote, like, whatever is helpful, or you're asking clear questions instead of like, oh, what's the update? Writing, taking 15 minutes to write an email, like, that is a robust moment. It's an
Hmm.
opportunity, and it these things say a lot about you. So it's during the conversation, it's in between, and just, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. I mean, I don't love putting soft skills in the resume because it's like, what's words
Hmm.
on a paper,
Yeah.
and it's like you are going to show all the traits about yourself. So if you're not naturally super organized, like try to work on keeping a tracker so you know exactly when to follow up. Like
Mm.
know your strengths and weaknesses and just recognize that like job search is your job. So you're your own boss right now, and you got to give yourself that feedback and you
Yeah.
got to be sort of very self-aware about where can I improve in this process. And just, yeah, remembering they're totally looking at you as a person in all the moments. That doesn't
Hmm.
mean feel worried like there's this spotlight, but yeah, like just know that they're going to notice. And a clear email or a clear follow-up or these little things can go a very long way just to give them the sense, are you trustworthy, are you
Yeah.
paying attention to detail, are you organized, right? And of course in the moment you got to walk the walk and show the stories of how you've done those specific skills before, but these are
Hmm.
the other components that make you a good teammate, a good
Hmm.
collaborator, make it easy to work with you, things like that. That's going to come across, right? I love this. What have you seen work best, to be successful and compelling in interviews? I think we're alluding to it, but any other do's and don'ts, mistakes, pitfalls, anything we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah. That's a great question. I guess The best candidates I see who go all the way and get a quick offer or just an offer at the end of the day that they're excited about are generally the most self-aware. Um, and by that I mean, they're aware of every step of the process and how they're presenting themselves. They show up on time, they speak with confidence, they're gracious, they just know what to say and how to behave professionally. You know, they are okay with not being perfect. They don't hold themselves to perfection. They own a flub or take a moment to collect themselves if they need to, or, they can just generally talk about their challenges with a growth mindset, rather than like weirdly trying to pivot into a positive, like my downfall is that I care too much or I work too hard. So I think they present themselves as a human being, that is honestly likable. I mean, I think that's a big aspect of this because I mean, this is the challenging part about interviewing, but there is this gut feeling that unfortunately a lot of hiring managers like put a lot of weight in. They just get a sense of like, I like this person. I get a sense that they could do a good job. And they're looking at a strong resume, and that's all really important. And hard skills are super important. Not saying that it's not. But there can be two really solid candidates. And I think the candidate who maybe comes across a bit more, I guess, like having all of these traits that I'm mentioning, like having that, not too hard on themselves, not holding themselves to perfection, but showing up with confidence, showing up graciously, kind of nailing the professional aspects of it. They tend to win out. And I honestly think it's people who follow up. I mean, the follow ups get people jobs. Like sometimes you slip
Mm,
a hiring manager's mind. They get busy or recently I had a client who purposefully said he was going to schedule a candidate for the next round. He didn't. And then he waited to see if the candidate would follow up with him.
my God. Yeah, it's such a test of like if
I
somebody
know. And
actually cares about that job.
I hate that. I don't think that's okay, really. I mean, is it wrong? I don't know. I don't like it. I
Yeah,
don't think
whether it's right
testing.
or wrong,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I get it though. Like if you
Yeah.
genuinely care about a role, you're going to follow up.
Yeah.
And so what it begs the question for me is like don't let your overall frustration about job search, deter your energy and
Yeah.
scrappiness. And again, if you're not willing or interested to follow up, did you really want that role in the first place? And are you
Yeah.
applying to the right things? Like we want you to figure out ways to get into the right conversations where you want to sort of chase it. You want to
Yeah.
inquire. You want to know the next steps. And if you're not
Yeah.
feeling that, are they the right roles in general? But I mean, I think it's a good reminder in general that follow up is so important. Um, but it
Yeah, like
also begs
people
the
want to
question, yeah.
hire people who really like them, like it's psychology. Like if someone acts like you're the bee's knees and your company or product is amazing, it's automatically going to make, the hiring manager like you a little bit more than the person who seems sort of whatever about your company. So
Right.
that
Right.
follow up is so critical. Like, yeah, it's just so important. And I've seen that be so make or break, for people in the process.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Love
you
that.
have as well.
Yeah. What do you think should differ in a candidate's mind, but for first round, second round, third rounds?
Um, Nothing. My like basic answer to that is you should prep like every round is your last and final because it might be, for better for worse. An employer may just not move you forward based on how you interview, or they may hand you an offer after one or two rounds. I mean, I've definitely seen it happen. So yeah, I think in my mind, there is no difference. Every single round you're heading into should be treated like it's the final. You have to knock it out of the park at every stage with every person. So, and I think that's a mindset of treating it like it's that important and like every stage could be the last. Um, while of course I can imagine would maybe pile on the nerves, and it would for myself. I get very nervous in interviews. I also think it can help kind of guide you in terms of how seriously you prepare, what you pour into, the questions you ask, the maybe the anecdotes you come to the table with. It should all be dialed in specifically for that interviewer and for that round, and to kind of move you forward. And you want to know that you kind of put it all out, left it all in the field, right? Like
Hmm.
you want to know that you poured the best of yourself into that. And I think I definitely talk to candidates regularly who are lamenting, they feel like they could have done more, they wish they would have
Mm,
tried this. Like that's a horrible regret to have, it's
yeah. Well, that's
so
what's difficult about
yeah.
interviews is it's a moment where you have to be concise and comprehensive, and it's a limited time frame, and you have to
Yep.
be ultra focused so that you don't leave anything out. But that
Hmm.
is all going to happen with prep. And
Yeah.
prep is getting your stories ready, but prep is also just like knowing how to think on your feet and knowing how to structure and organize your thoughts and know how
Yeah.
to think in the moment so you don't forget things. And it takes practice because this type of speaking is
Hmm.
not normal necessarily. We would talk in a normal conversation and we would just ramble with each other and it would
Right.
whatever. This is like the ultra focused moment. You don't want to leave anything behind. So absolutely the mock interviews or whatever you need to do to prepare, it's
Yeah.
the strategic, how you handle questions, how you think on your feet, how you structure your thoughts. It's a different style of speaking, and it really warrants the prep so you can show up in your best way. And look, you're gonna learn by doing.
Yep.
There's a natural thing of like, I'll never forget when I was in undergrad, Goldman was like my last interview, and it was after months of me doing interviews. I
Mm.
got lucky there. But what
Yeah.
if you have your dream interview and it's like early on in your job search?
Yeah.
Practice as much as you can and get different mock interviewers and have as many moments, have different people ask you different questions and challenge
Hmm.
you with different styles, different formats. It's like, getting more reps, right? it's
Yeah.
it's it's you want to challenge yourself
Right.
before you get into the moment. And the other thing that I always say is like, if you haven't prepped enough, it's gonna feel alien when you're in the moment.
Oh,
But like,
so true.
if you just practice, you're going to be like, okay, this feels physically normal.
Yep.
But like, so my nerves and my body isn't going to be like attacking my brain, but
So
I'm going to
true.
be able to just focus in the moment about like, what's the best story I can tell? And I'll be calm, cool, and collected because you've done the practice. So like, I
Yeah.
cannot say enough about the practice. But again, you're
Yeah.
not trying to memorize. You're just like getting in a rhythm of like, how can I be comfortable in a conversation like this and rise to the occasion? And it's not easy. How can you be comprehensive and concise all at the same time? But that's
Hmm.
why it warrants the time to go through this stuff.
Yeah. And I think even as much as you prep, like we always leave stuff out, right? Maybe we forget to hit certain points. Like no matter how much you do, you walk out of that interview like, oh, I forgot to say this or I wanted to say that. And that's the other place a follow up comes in, because it is a great place not only to say that, like that thank you note, I appreciate your time, but also to further sell yourself. Like maybe you elaborate on a point you wanted to clarify from the interview that you messed up, or clarify something, or use it to showcase another example of what you did. Just sneak in bits about yourself that you didn't get to share previously. Like if the interview kind of goes wrong, or you feel like you didn't end up sharing as concisely as you wanted to, there are still opportunities to do that and to salvage it after the fact with the
Yeah,
follow up. Yeah.
totally. And we're human. Like, people get
People
their
get
point
it.
across in different
Yeah.
ways. You might think of it afterwards, but also this is why I
Yep.
love writing blogs, because a blog could be a fun thing to send after an interview where it's like your written version of
Hmm.
actually how you think about a certain topic that you're
Yeah.
supposed to be an expert. So even if you didn't communicate it perfectly, are there other ways to showcase your expertise, a portfolio or whatever, blogs? I
So
mean, there's just
true.
so many different. So follow up, yes, like write that email, but proactively, if you're building out thought leadership, that's another thing you can share. So yeah, I mean, that's just another kind of tool in your toolbox.
Yeah.
Um, all right, we're gonna
Definitely.
open it up after just one more question. So this is kind of just a fun oddball, but with job search taking so long, how do you think about people either freelancing, consulting, going out on their own, or honestly just like taking, a random sort of, gig somewhere that they wouldn't have expected, just getting a little creative with it. Like what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I Cannot be a bigger proponent of this. Simply because I think every experience you have adds something to your resume. It adds something to your story. It adds something, to your tool belt, as you were saying. So I think everyone's in a different scenario right now in the job search, right? Some people are able to float themselves through this whole thing, or they have partners who can do that. I think that's such a gift and a blessing. For a lot of people, they don't. They can't do that for whatever reason. So I never ever would shame somebody for just taking a job to kind of get through a season, right? If you need to do that, if you need to, um, or if you need to take on some freelancing gigs, even though everything in you just wants a W 2, you want that salary, you want the stability. This job market is crazy and it is not going to last like this forever, but we all have to survive and you've got to do what you got to do to get through. I think anytime you step out and maybe pursue like this little thought in your head that was like, what if I tried this? Or what if I did this? Or what if I actually took a leap and this is the time for me to go out on my own? I would say that I've never heard somebody who tried that and regretted it. I've
Mm,
never met a founder or somebody who tried freelancing or working for themselves who said, I shouldn't have done it. That was a mistake. Because even if they eventually went back to a full time role, um, they learned so much. And
yeah.
to be honest, I did that myself after I was laid off from WeWork during the pandemic. And I didn't last in my business. I had my own coaching business for 2 years. I could not financially keep myself afloat long term, but it helped me land my next position. And it was a big driver in all of the or like a big point of interest for all the interviews I've had like since. And so I think, you never know what connections, what path it might lead you on. And I think if you're considering it, man, like we are trading our most valuable resource every day at our jobs, our time
Mm,
for money. And I think you have to know that that's worthwhile, that it's adding something to your life. And if any part of you thinks like there's got to be more to being alive and being a human than what I'm doing every day, I think you owe it to yourself potentially to explore that, further, in whatever
yeah.
capacity that looks like.
And worst case, it helps you brand yourself because
Yep.
as an entrepreneur, you need to
Yeah.
figure out how to do that. So you sell yourself and you synthesize what is it I have to offer. So even if just thinking like an entrepreneur is going to
Yeah.
help with your job search. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a little Q&A. I saw some hands, so if you had a hand up, please bring it back, and I'll start with Rebecca here. So we're gonna invite you up, and please tell us your question and how we can help. And you can unmute if you're not already, because we can't hear you, Rebecca. Or let's see. Yep. All right. Let us know if you can get the sound going. In the meantime, I will take a look at my DMs here and just see. I think we got a question in the door. And if anyone else has a question, please do raise your hand. I'm going to open up. Yeah. So, Kelly, I got a question about AI and, should we be using it to tailor a resume cover letter or how to answer questions? I think it's interesting, where it could help or not. So curious your thoughts, AI for job seekers, and what you can share on that.
Yeah, I'm sure we feel somewhat similarly on this one, but AI is truly changing the game for how easily candidates can make changes to their resume and create a cover letter, write a thank you note. Platforms like Teal rely on it to smooth the hiccups of applying. I think it's brilliant. I use it myself. I think we'll only continue to see how it's used in the process, the job search process, grow and blossom into other tools and solutions for candidates. Probably none of that will help Workday figure out how to create a single sign-on, but I think it's a real tool that I encourage every candidate I talk to incorporate simply because it can really help eliminate some of the burnout, like the repetitive tasks, the stuff that just really tears at your soul day after day, trying to, um, you know, rework your resume and write notes and et cetera. I mean, it's a lot, and it really can be a big part of the drag that is job searching. So, if you can find anything that helps lighten the load, I say go for it. There's tons of free tools. Of course, you have to caveat that a lot of the stuff that AI spits out needs your finessing, needs to be converted to your tone, and generally needs a little bit of TLC, but I do think
Mm,
overall it can give you a great template for
mhm.
creating a lot of these. And I think people use it in wild ways. Like people use ChatGPT to mock interview with them, or it's wild. I think the applications for this will continue to expand. But what do you think,
Yeah.
Rach?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just make sure you're not just copying and pasting because I
Yeah.
have heard people where they're like, I know when I read something that was written by a
Yeah.
computer. So
Yeah.
just be very careful. And I think it can help you with, like you said, templates or giving you ideas or helping you
Mm-hmm.
prep for interviews. So use it where you can use it, but don't let it like replace your brain. Like you should
Yes.
overlay your words, or like, you could ask it a question like, what are a few different ways I could say this? And if you see
Mm-hmm.
five different ways, you pick the one that like, makes sense
Mm-hmm.
for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So use it creatively and see
Yeah.
how it can still help you be the leader
Mm-hmm.
versus just like doing the work sort of for you. So just make sure you're still being strategic with that.
I've
um
also seen
yeah.
candidates use it like, I really like X, Y, and Z company. Can you
Mm,
list me 20 other companies similar
yes,
to this?
yes.
Or like explore what types of roles, like here's some of my strengths. Can you give me some thoughts on what types of roles use those strengths? Like I think you can use it in some really interesting outside the box ways as well.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Any other hands in the audience? Any other questions? I mean, I'll keep asking you some questions, but do raise your hand if anyone else has questions or DM me. Oh, okay, I've got one. Here we go. Aurelia, please tell us your question. Um, Hold on. Let's see. I invited you up, but I don't know why we can't hear you.
Please make sure that your microphones are enabled to Fishbowl, and that way we can have access to your sound.
All right. And Aurelia, if you can't get it working, please DM me. I could read your question that way, but if you do get the sound working, please let us know. I think you're muted now, but feel free to unmute and try to get that going. And if not, I will keep going for right now. Let's see. Oh, okay, we've got another one. So let's take a hand from the audience. All right. Yes, tell us your question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for a great session. Firstly, my question is actually related to pre-interviews. So, what are the steps that I can take to make sure that my resume is actually reviewed? I have tried, applying through referrals, and I've been trying to cold message a lot of recruiters and hiring managers on LinkedIn, but usually, if like they're not active, they don't see it, or they don't accept connection requests. So, how do you suggest? uh, to go about this.
Yeah, so I just want to synthesize because your volume was a little low, but it sounds like when you message hiring managers or recruiters, if people don't see it, if people don't respond, how do you still, get yourself out there is what I'm hearing.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, Kelly, you want to take it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard right now because hiring managers and recruiters inboxes are swamped. I myself try really hard to get through my inbox. But to be honest, it's very full, and every message I get on LinkedIn is time I take out of my personal life to respond to people and try to give them support. And I know that's true for most recruiters, right? So um it really does help if you make sure that you're finding recruiters who are in your space. So make sure that for whatever role you're looking at, you find recruiters who specifically work on that role. Anyone else will likely not be a great resource for you. And I think from there, it's maybe finding, like I was saying, your pizza moment, your ability to get creative in reaching out to that recruiter, because I guarantee they have hundreds, if not thousands, of messages from people saying, here's my resume, can you help me? And that just speaks to how crazy the market is right now. And I know so many recruiters who do really want to help. I guess my advice would be to find, like I'm saying, that workaround, that either you figure out a way to send them an email that potentially has a bit more detail and doesn't put maybe some of the pressure on them to get on the phone with you, but is more of like, here's who I am, here's my resume, this is what I'm looking for. Can you please keep me in mind? I'm always grateful for those notes, and I do keep people in mind for them.
Mm.
Um, and I also think, maybe trying to engage with these people when they post, when they do post. If they are people who are creating content, start being a household name in their mind.
Yeah.
Get in front of them by connecting with their messaging and adding value to the posts that they and the content that they create. Those are some initial thoughts. I think it's hard if they don't use LinkedIn. Yeah, that is a challenge right now. And I think, again, there has to be some creativity in getting in touch with these people outside of potentially the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And also just networking in general. Like
Mm,
find those right recruiters, but like, see if you have any alumni there or see if you have a mutual connection, see if you can get an introduction, see if you can reach out to people on the team that you want to join. Like there's a variety of different ways to get your foot in the door. Think about your network's network, try to get those intros or just grow and expand your network because if you naturally meet somebody at an event and then like they're willing to pass you along or introduce you, then like you're just literally starting with relationship building to see where it leads versus what are the odds when you see an open role that you're going to know somebody and then you have to cold outreach. So there's different directions to get your foot in the door, but just like think about how your network can help, think about how you can expand your network and meet people and see where it leads. There's so many different types of avenues to get people to help you versus like, oh, I don't know anyone, and now I just have to send a lot of cold messages. Cold is not the only way. You want to try to have these actual relationships and having phone calls with people in your target roles and informational chats, right? And just having different angles, different ways in, different types of relationships, different types of connections, right?
that's a
And
great
and
point.
ideally warmer connections,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
I see another question in the DMs. So it says, I'm an aspiring management consultant. I'm interested in breaking into the field. I'm graduating with a master's in financial management. But it's not a target school for firms. What is the thing you would really look for in a LinkedIn profile or resume? And what catches your eye? I mean, in this case, they're talking about management consulting, but in general, if you just have things that stand out to you, LinkedIn resume, that candidates can think about.
Do you want to take this one first, Rach?
Sure. So let's see. I mean, look, the resume, there's a lot we could say.
Yeah.
I always look at the layout first, like, is it clean? And can I easily digest this information? The template can go a long way. And then of course be really clean and clear and make those metrics clear, make your impact clear, obviously relevant professional experiences. If you're coming from grad school, did you have that internship? Did you hold that past title? What
Mhm.
projects, what work was relevant? Make it easy to find that you've done these responsibilities before. With LinkedIn, I know there's a technical component of the algorithm and your headline having the right keywords, past
Yeah.
role titles being similar, your about section. I mean, there's ways of looking at these materials technically to see does it have the right keywords. And then
Mhm.
there's also like what happens when a human just reads this versus a computer, so you want to think about both. But yeah, I mean, that's my quick thoughts. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about with the resume and the LinkedIn. So,
Mhm.
it's hard to say one magic bullet per se, but what stands out to you when you're looking at those materials?
Yeah, I think just having a complete LinkedIn profile. I think just making sure that, to your point, you've got a headline, you've got a professional summary, which, Rachel, you're so good at helping people craft, but really making sure it's your elevator pitch on, how many years of experience you have and expertise in what space and what you're looking for. Um, And, making sure that, like I said, it's just got all the details in there. And then I also find that recommendations go a long way. It's like having your references on your LinkedIn, like front and center. So looking out for people who maybe within your program at school, or a professor, like somebody who can kind of give you a recommendation around your expertise. I always advise candidates to do that. It's so easy to do. And like I said, I think it can go a long way. But yeah, having a complete profile that looks robust, that looks like you've put intention into crafting,
Mm,
I find like psychologically, again, really goes a long way with
yeah.
employers. They see a person who's bringing a lot to the table just because their profile has a lot. It's meaty, right? It's got a lot of
Well,
information.
it's
It's
like
bringing,
we need to do the job, but we also now need these like thought leaders. And when you've
yes.
built your brand, it shows that it's not just the behind the scenes of like I know how to do my job, but
Yeah.
I could be this like voice. I could be an advocate. I can speak on behalf of my company if I needed to. Like I have a polished brand. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just gives like that good vibe of like I'm a person that goes out of my way to go the extra mile. I
Hmm.
pay attention to detail. I take
Hmm.
advantage of opportunities. Like it says
Right.
things about your work ethic sort of. And I mean the bottom line here is LinkedIn has become almost more important than the resume. And so
Yeah.
we can't ignore it. And there's ways to get creative. And I think you're right. It says a lot about like just your drive, your ambition. Like, did you take time to try to make this a thing, to tell us
Hmm.
who you are? Like it does. Yeah, I think it's interesting the subtle impressions sometimes that
Yeah.
are given off by these materials. And of course, it's like, what does it say at face value? But like to your point, just looking put together shows effort, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Couldn't agree more.
I love it. We got another question, and this person was laid off. And how do you deal with that? My self confidence is affected because of what happened. It was a total
Yeah.
shock. And so, my quick thought here is yes, like we hear you, we see you, we are here
Yeah.
for you, and it's real. And you're human. And so, what I always say with a layoff, it's like take the first bit to just heal and process. And what can you learn, what can you take away, what can you accept, what's in your control, what was out of your control. And it might be a difficult, unfortunate, it might have been an unfair situation. All of these things can be true. So take care of your mental health, get some therapy going, get some career coaching going, get some friends and peer groups and communities, get some moral support, get your personal network ready to lift you up, get some fun activities and hobbies going, get some upskilling going. And I love just diving into like skill development and like revisit like what can my life look like right now, and how do I just create a new routine, get my support system going, get organized, but also like take the time to process and heal, and just remember you're human, give yourself some grace, and just remember this is hard, and
Yeah.
it's a process and you will work through it.
And for
So
most
yeah.
of your life, you're going to work. You're going to be employed. So
Yeah.
few moments in our life do we spend in these moments of like a timeout. Like, okay, maybe it was a timeout you didn't choose, but it is kind of a unique opportunity to say, is this what I want? Was the path I've been walking the one I want to continue on? Is this right for me? What is right for me in this next chapter of my life? And I think when we're in the swing of working and in our routines of what that looks like day to day, we don't ask ourselves that question because we kind of just know like this is what we're doing and we need to have a job. And um, I think a layoff can be a real gift of like taking a time out in the game and saying, okay, I'm gonna work again. That much is true. You will work again.
Yeah.
And you will find the right spot for you again. But I think really making sure it is a strategic choice. What a gift
Yeah,
in a
it
way.
is. It's an
Yeah.
opportunity. It's a window. It's a moment to take a step
Yeah.
back and craft the next step. But
Rather than just
yeah,
going decades or years of your life kind of unthinkingly going through the motions, like working, maybe job hopping to the next thing and the next thing, but like unthinking maybe in a sense about what really is true for you. And yeah, I think it can be a real gift, even though not denying by any means, like you said, Rach, like it is a gut punch. It is so difficult. And I really empathize with that and been there before. It's hard.
yeah, it is hard, but you're gonna be absolutely okay. And job search, it can be one of the hardest things people do, but it also can make you so strong. And so just have support systems around you, get the guidance, get the resources, get the tools, and just know that you absolutely will be okay. Seeing the positive, seeing the opportunity, and then finding ways to, I truly think like having upskilling going on during job search, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to be entrepreneurial and freelance or whether you're like doing some skill development, it helps the mindset so much. Like, don't let the fact that you're not working make you think that you don't have value. Like, just refine your value, refine your skills and passions and interests, and lean in. And it's going to remind you to be confident and show up to your networking in a confident way. And, find those different, habits or hobbies or skill development or just new things you can do and learn that will lift you in this moment. Versus thinking like that you're not valued, because it's your value in your current job. It's not associated, right? So refining your sense of that value
Yeah.
outside of the role. And by the way, that's just a blessing in itself too, because you should always feel valued, and not rely on the role to make you feel that way. So you're gonna learn a lot about yourself and the world in this journey. So I realize we have a minute here. Yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And you can find us at iamwoken.com on socials. We are usually at Get Woken. And we always offer a free initial chat. So if you want to talk about how you're doing, like, please set up a call. And we will be back for more. And we will also have this recording. Kelly, how can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. And then also my podcast is We Just Work Here. It's on Spotify, and on Instagram as Kelly Recruits.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. We will be back for more. And please reach out if there's more that we can do to help you. And hopefully you enjoyed this. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rach.
Bye.